Well, hello folks, thank you for joining me today again on the Church History Trail. You're very welcome to the programme. And where we find ourselves today is on the John Wesley Road, and we're in County Fermanagh, and we're just off the Killadays Road, which is just beyond that building there and that tree, which is the main road just out of Enniskillen towards Castle Archdale. And so a bit of history here. We're certainly following in big footsteps today, and I have a gentleman here who's going to tell us a wee bit about the history here. Hello sir, how you doing? I'm Mark from the Church History Trail.
Hi Mark.
Good to meet you. And what's your name?
Wesley Mitchell.
Wesley Mitchell. So could you tell us a wee bit about the history here, Wesley?
Well, the history is that back in the late 1700s, John Wesley travelled this road here. This is one of the oldest roads on the east of Lough Erne, Upper Lough Erne. And he would have travelled here during his preaching tours. Just on this side here, he preached at a place called Lara, where after he died, there was a little Methodist church established. And then he travelled down to Killadays, which is on the way to Castle Archdale, where one of the smallest Methodist churches was built in Ireland. And he travelled this old cobbled road many times on his horseback as he was preaching. And over at Lara, he conducted his services under a grove of trees, and the people who were in the fields and in the local area would have come to hear him preach, and of course many got converted and got saved.
Fantastic.
As a consequence of him preaching the gospel.
Brilliant. There's a stone here. What's the significance of the stone then?
Well, this stone actually was brought out of an old Celtic fort. A square Celtic fort at a place called Cancool, and my father brought it down here, and just to remember the ministry and the testimony of John Wesley, and the road here was named just a few years ago John Wesley Road.
Fantastic. And of course we can see that on the sign, John Wesley's Road. Brilliant. And of course there's an old fort over the hill, as you were saying.
Yes.
And so what I'm going to do now then is I'm going to take a wee walk up this road, and as I go I'll give the viewers a wee commentary of a wee bit more of the history of it. I'll probably cover some stuff that you've already covered as well. So this is the John Wesley Road, folks. Absolutely fantastic. And of course the road's unique with the tall hedges there, as you can see. And also on either side we have the original the trees, which are believed to be original from the construction of this road. So you're walking on a wee bit of history here, folks. Absolutely fantastic. And so though they're oak trees, and they actually overhang the road here, as you can see. So the road was named by Highlands Mitchell in memory of the preaching tours of the Reverend John Wesley, as my brother just said there, between 1756 and 1786. I hope to be able to visit Laura and also Killadays, the two preaching places where Wesley ministered. And of course Wesley would have used this road. He would have been on horseback. And of course it reminds me of the time that Wesley was suffering, was either from gallstones or else kidney stones. But he was troubled, but yet he pressed on in his ministry. So that's something that I admire of those early men, and the reformers as well. They didn't let the ailments that they encountered prevent their ministry. And of course they didn't have the healthcare that we have today, but yet they pressed on in the Lord. And his horse was going over, I believe it was a cobbled road, whenever it stumbled. And whenever way it stumbled, it actually moved John Wesley's stones. And so he had never no more problem with the stones. Now, in a tribute then to the great work that John Wesley done, as you've seen there, Highlands, he put up a big stone there, as our brother said, from the fort, and then he put the John Wesley Road on it as a tribute and as a memorial to the work that was done here. How many Methodist preaching places would there have been in this area?
Well, at one time there would have been around 14 different Methodist preaching places on the Methodist circuit. You're going back over 100 years ago. and of course that's well diminished now down to just one or two. But in those days, you have to remember the folks didn't have cars,
Yes.
so they couldn't travel. So the preachers had to come to the people. So the preachers would have been travelling preachers, itinerant preachers, who would have travelled on their horses, and they would have gathered where they found a place to gather the local people together. Sometimes it was just a house, and then after a few years, then they would have built a little meeting house. And of course, back in those days, also many of the Methodists still attended the local Anglican church. They would have went to the Anglican church for the sacraments, and then in the afternoon or later on in the morning they would have had their Methodist service, and that's back in the mid 1800s.
Fantastic. And then the road actually runs through your father's farm then?
It does.
That's incredible, isn't it? Absolutely incredible. The John Wesley Road right on your doorstep. And of course you live in the house here. Dad lived in the house near the road, the main road, didn't he?
He did. He lived in what he called Covenanter Cottage.
And why is it called Covenanter Cottage?
Well, my father had a great love for the history of the Covenanters.
Yes.
Obviously going back to his roots in Scotland. And a number of years ago he had a gentleman historian come over to talk about the history of the Covenanters and them coming to Ireland, and so he named the cottage Covenanter Cottage.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. I've actually covered a few videos on the Covenanters, and I've covered David Houston, who was he actually would have took part in conventicles. In other words, meetings that were not allowed, they were illegal, so they had to meet in secret. He met at the Black Hole, of course, in Ballymena, and actually his brother, David's brother John, went to America, and he went to Texas, and one of his descendants was Sam Houston, and of course we have Houston in Texas, which is actually named after the Houston family. They're originally from Scotland and then they came here. So the road would have went on here then?
Yes, the road would have carried on over to what we call the Ballycassidy River, and then over the river, and then over to Lara, and then in towards Enniskillen, which is really just passing Devonish Island as well. So just past the road that are taking you down to Devonish Island.
And we get a good view here. Fantastic view of this. What was this, Lower Loch Earn?
This is Lower Loch Earn, and you're just seeing the loch at the narrow point, and then just further to the right it opens out to the expanse of the loch, which is about 7-8 miles
My
wide.
goodness.
And you can see the islands. There's an island on Loch Earn for every day of the year, 365.
That
so
is
you've
crazy.
plenty of your picks, and of course back in the old days people lived in the islands. There are not many inhabited now, but there are some that have little cottages on them. But it's a great place for people who want to come and spend their time boating on the lakes.
I have to say, see, just looking at that, it looks like the trees at the top look like a castle. You would think you're actually looking at something in the Highlands of Scotland.
It is, yes. Well, it's the Lake District of Northern Ireland, and you know the lakes travel for over 50 odd miles.
My goodness.
Between the lower and the upper loch, and then of course the upper loch has been connected by canal to the Shannon River. So theoretically by boat you can travel 2/3 of Ireland from the Fermanagh Lakes down to Limerick.
Unbelievable.
And a lot of folks do that who come from overseas. They hire a cruiser or a boat and travel down
Fantastic.
through the lakes.
So there you go, folks. So no matter what country you're watching this video in, get your holiday booked here in Fermanagh. Get to see the Fermanagh Lakelands, and who knows, you might even get to walk the old John Wesley Road. Thanks for watching, and God bless.